You're on the Bible Forum. Have you ever heard about global warming? It's all we hear about. I've heard about it all my life. I'm 76 years old. Been hearing about it for generations. Is it global warming? Or is it something else? Experts are warning us that this will be a freezing, frigid, and frosty winter. And even though the official beginning of winter is still over a month away, it already feels like that in much of the country right now. Over the next several days, it will literally feel like it's mid-January in much of central and eastern portions of the United States. Many areas will be hit by temperatures that are 30 degrees below normal, and heavy snow is expected in some areas of the Midwest. These extraordinarily low temperatures could potentially be absolutely devastating for our Midwestern corn harvest. In essence, this cold front threatens to put an exclamation point on an absolutely horrific year for U.S. farmers. Is this God's judgment? Is it the end of the age? Perhaps. But did you know the Weather Service says this is normal? They're forecasting 170 potential daily record cold high temperatures Monday through Wednesday. That from the Weather Channel meteorologist Jonathan Erdman. He called it a little taste of January in November. This temperature nosedive will be a 3-day process as a cold front charges across the central and eastern U.S. from Sunday into Tuesday. It'll impact portions of Texas and all across the upper Midwest. This will be followed by major blizzards in October that roared through the Midwest. But the Farmer's Almanac and the Old Farmer's Almanac are projecting that this upcoming winter will be unusually cold and snowy. So why is all this happening? It's easy to point to global warming. Maybe we're looking at the judgment of God. But they tell us it's quite simple. During a solar minimum, solar activity drops to very low levels, and that tends to mean lower temperatures on Earth. Earlier this year, a panel of experts gathered to discuss the current solar minimum, and they came to the conclusion that it could last for years. If you like solar minimum good news, it could last simply for years. That was one of the predictions issued last week by an international panel of experts who gathered at NOAA's annual Space Weather Workshop to forecast the next solar cycle. There are others that believe we are now entered a grand solar minimum, such as the one that our planet experienced several hundred years ago. That one was known as the Maunder minimum, and it resulted in something called the Little Ice Age. This extreme example happened between 1645 and 1715, when the normal 11-year sunspot cycle vanished. That period, called the Maunder minimum, was accompanied by bitterly cold winters in the American colonies. Fishing settlements in Iceland and Greenland were abandoned. Icebergs were seen near the English Channel. The canals of Venice froze. It was a time of great hardship. Now, my theory is that there was a great deal more ice on the planet then. The flood in Noah's day, about 1800 years after creation. The receding water not completely gone before much of it froze due to the sheer amount of water on the planet, cooling the air. Subsequent cooling spells as the ice receded. We call it the Little Ice Age, from 1550 to 1850. Think Revolutionary War, mid-1700s, Valley Forge, Delaware River frozen. Ultimately, the longer winters and shorter summers during the Maunder minimum resulted in famine all over the globe, and multitudes ended up perishing. The Maunder Minimum is the most famous cold period of the Little Ice Age. Temperatures plummeted in Europe. The growing season became shorter by more than a month. The number of snowy days increased from a few to 20 or 30. The ground froze to several feet. Alpine glaciers advanced all over the world. Glaciers in the Swiss Alps encroached on farms and buried villages. Tree lines in the Alps dropped. Seaports were blocked by sea ice that surrounded Iceland and Holland for about 20 miles. Wine grape harvests diminished, and cereal grain harvests failed, leading to mass famines. The Thames River and canals and rivers of the Netherlands froze over during the winter. The population of Iceland decreased by half. In parts of China, warm weather crops that had been grown for centuries were abandoned. In North America, early European settlers experienced exceptionally severe winters. So far in 2019, there have been more than 200 days without a single sunspot on the sun. We don't know when the solar activity will return to normal, but for now, we're being told to expect bitterly cold winter. Despite all our advanced technology, we remain deeply dependent on that weather. Even after a year or two of bad harvests could potentially be absolutely catastrophic, the mainstream media will not tell us the truth until it's way too late to do anything about it. Are you hearing anything like this? We're being warned about global warming. The scientists are preparing us for a global freeze. Does that tell you anything? I've been telling you for years this global warming phenomena is a moneymaker. It's not real. But I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert. I'm not a liberal. I'm not in the know. So I'm just an idiot on the side. I don't know nothing. I can read, and unless everybody's lying, the scientists know. Why is this not blasted across television and internet so that we can prepare for it? Nope. It runs counter to the propaganda. Can you say 1984, George Orwell? We're being controlled by our media. Some of us.